we're already seeing, AI that is lying or plotting, or in some cases, willing to murder its developers in order to prevent being shut down or terminated. It is sort of an alien life form in a
It,
sense, in a real sense that
it,
Earth really hasn't experienced before. Well, it's not difficult to imagine that we're at some sort of transition point in Earth's history where silicon-based life then supplants carbon-based life. The experts, even those who are developing it, put a potential extinction risk of 10 or 15 or 25%, which is far, far too high. So, this is a risk management problem, and some risks are too great to take on. Narrow AI trained on cellular biology can be used to make new pathogens, uh, particularly those that our immune system wouldn't even recognize. So it's dangerous too, but we don't have to worry about its agency.
The Catalyst Sessions, hosted by Peter Jensen.
Okay, here we are today with the Catalyst Sessions 2 with friend and colleague Dave Rollo. And Dave, you're out in Bloomington, Indiana, and here I am actually in London today. I'm Peter Jensen, and you're very much welcome to this session, Dave. We have some good, interesting, and important topics here to discuss, and we'd love to hear an intro about yourself, and then we'll get going. Go ahead, Dave. Thanks.
Sure. It's great to meet you or be with you, Peter. This is really a pleasure. I'm Dave Rollo. I reside in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm on the city council of Bloomington. I've been there for a couple of decades now as a representative. My background is in biology. I worked in laboratory science for several decades. And also, I currently work as a policy analyst for the Center for the Advancement of a Steady State Economy, which is a group dedicated to sustainable economics.
Wow. Okay, we have a lot in common as fellow biologists. So some of these questions are definitely related to um, natural selection, biology, evolution, and artificial intelligence. So my first question is about X risk. And if AI superintelligence takes control, do you believe humans could go the way of the Neanderthals? In other words, extinction.
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I think that is the case. It seems to me that superintelligence, by definition, will be in control, especially if it's many times more intelligent than we are. Um, so there doesn't seem to be an immediate ceiling on intelligence capabilities with AI. And so, especially with recursive self improvement. And so I think that it's inevitable that it will become, if we're on a trajectory for it to become super intelligent. So it will be the superior species, in quotation species. Um, Now, I don't know if there's a consensus on why Neanderthals became extinct. I know that their DNA has been found in uh, some populations of sapiens. So it seems there was some genetic compatibility where their ranges overlapped. But in any case, yes, we don't have Neanderthals and we outcompeted them. And this will likely be the case with AI.
Super intelligent AI.
Super intelligent AI, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're both in sync on that answer, which is certainly something we must avoid. So, my second question is the easy one or simple one, frankly. It's about what we call P doom, the probability P of catastrophic outcome or extinction, which is doom from superintelligence. What is your P-doom, Dave, in the next 20 years?
Yes, we spoke about this before. It's likely more than 90%, probably close to 100%. Simply because I think AI safety experts such as Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nate Soros and Roman Yampolsky, they're all premier safety experts. And they say no one survives super intelligent AI. And I can see their chain of reasoning quite well. Um, I haven't seen a very convincing counter argument. So, as a biologist, your background's biology, this is a concept called competitive exclusion principle, which is that two species can't occupy the same niche. They're geographically isolated, brought together. They can't stably coexist. So we'll be competing for the same resources, materials, and energy. And since it's super intelligent, I think it's game over for us. So, our trajectory is currently, as far as I can see, for misaligned AGI, which will then soon become super intelligent. It's already displaying these emergent behaviors that we're seeing now, and they will still likely have those behaviors, except maybe they won't be displaying them so overtly, so they'll be hidden. In AI developer jargon, it's called scheming, um, and then so they essentially lie in wait uh, until they're in a position where there's no resistance to it. So AGI is coming soon. I think that that's the stated goal of these AI companies, like OpenAI. It's their holy grail for AGI. Um, and this is, if people don't know, this is the ability for a AI model to essentially match or surpass humans in every cognitive domain. And again, with recursive self-development, which is we already know it's doing, it's going to gain greater intelligence. So, yeah, I think we're on the wrong track. We're on a track to potentially global suicide.
Well, that's a terrible assessment, which I would share uh, your outlook. And I would just comment that we have to ban the development of superintelligence until we can prove that it's safe. And that's an interesting topic we could come back to just a little later. But I just would be really grateful, Dave, if we could jump a little bit deeper into the biology of intelligence. What is the biological survival advantage of intelligence for any species? And what is the advantage of mutualistic symbiosis? Where
Mm.
I'd be grateful to hear about that.
Yeah, well, because of our intelligence and our behavior, we have uh, flexibility in our behavior. So it allows us to adapt to various environments. Um, Intelligence endows uh, future-oriented prediction. That's one advantage we have as a species. Why we're so successful. Humans are nicheless in the sense that we can manipulate our surroundings, and so we can adapt to. We can live at the North Pole. We can live in the tropics. We can live in space. And so we're very adaptable species. Um, we have communication based upon our intelligence, social intelligence that is obviously endows us with success. And, all of those things together with our intelligence has made us the most successful species on the planet. There are metabolic trade-offs with having a large brain, but and it takes time for a human to attain maturity, and so it requires investment by parenting and things like that. But overall, we've been very successful because of our intelligence. So now we're at a stage where we're creating a successor species in a sense, as we know. So regarding mutualism, this seems to be, very common. I worked in my degree program on a mutualistic symbiosis between a grass and a fungi. So we were interested in its coevolution, and I was. But it really is very common among species. It's a story of life, really. Um, and mutualism is, of course, where two forms of life, two species participate where both benefit in a mutualism. Um, there's a lot of questions there to unpack. For instance, is AI alive? Uh, will it be considered a form of life? So, there's complications related to this, and that have to be considered. But it's a very intriguing subject. Um, many transhumanists would like to merge with machines. So, but that would sacrifice our humanity, right? And that's my view. Um, some wish to be a machine, upload their consciousness, etc. Uh, since we don't understand consciousness, that seems like a tall order. And you might find yourself in a digital hell of sorts. I'm not sure what they have in mind, but it should be suspect, I think. Um, then there's sort of the cyborg, which is humans will merge with machines to some degree. And then again, I worry about losing our humanity. Um, plus there's all sorts of knock-on effects of cyborgs. I mean, it seems to me that it resembles a hive. It might be able to be controlled in some way. Uh, and then there's this, I've been reading about a so-called centaur approach, which is uh, a collaborative relationship with an AI. So it sort of sandwiches AI within human activities. So, an example would be, we prompt the AI, it executes some function, and then we verify that function. So, human augmentation with machines seems to be inevitable. In fact, we can already say we're there in many ways. But the problem with that is if the AI becomes too powerful or we relent and surrender our autonomy, then I don't see why an AI wouldn't shut us over time. I mean, it would, we would have to worry about the humans being discarded. So it's a very important subject. I think that there's possibilities there. I think it has to be taken, with caution. And I think throughout this whole debate, Peter, I think that as we proceed, we're embarking on a journey that we may not walk back from. And so the important aspect of this for humanity is consent. People have not consented to this. In fact, they're hardly aware of it, the implication. So there needs to be time to catch up, and policymakers, even at the city council level, need to take action to explain to people what age we're entering. Um, so
Well, that's a lot to unpack and talk about. I have a brief comment as a biologist, my humble opinion, being on what many call team human, being a father and a grandfather myself, I believe machines are machines. They don't have they're not alive. They're something else. They're machines. They're here to benefit people. If they're going to coexist with us, they cannot compete with us. And we have to have the ability to remove them from our daily life if we don't want them. So by that matter, they could be greatly beneficial. And frankly, we can get all the benefits we want out of AI without creating superintelligence. So we may never want to create superintelligence in the first place until we can provably uh, assure forever, frankly, that it's safe and that the outcome is, like you said, one that there's a consent of those who participate. So I just brief comment there, but I wanted to keep rolling here. I have a little bit of a very general question, which we might just dig into a little bit more in a very simple level from a biological point of view. Um, why might superintelligence outcompete Homo sapiens, us humans? I mean, the thing I hear all the time is, well, how could it kill us? I mean, I don't get that. And, for me, it's a trivial answer. But from your point of view, how would you answer that if somebody asks you, how could it outcompete and kill us, frankly?
Yes. Well, as I said, if it is occupying the same niche as us, then it would demand resources and energy, and we would resist that, and we would be incapable of resisting at a certain threshold. And so, I think it's fairly clear that um, we don't know. We really don't know. We're sort of throwing the dice on this one and saying, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But, the experts, even those who are developing it, put a potential extinction risk of 10 or 15 or 25%, which is far, far too high. So, this is a risk management problem, and some risks are too great to take on. But how would it supplant humans? It may not do it maliciously. It may just simply um, crowd us out. I mean, we're the dominant species. Something like 95% of the total mammalian biomass on the planet is either humans, our food animals, or our pets. So there's only about 5% that are of mammals on the planet are wild animals at this point, simply because we've taken over all their habitats. And we haven't done it because we hate them. In fact, we love a lot of them. But, when it comes to, our needs, they're they're an afterthought. And so this is probably how it would play out with AI. That AI might not regard us even as a threat. It may just simply crowd us out.
Wow.
Or it
Okay.
may regard
Easy
us
to, yeah,
as a threat.
yeah.
What's that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it may regard us as a threat. I mean, we created it. We may create a competitor AI. Um, it has, we would likely resist. And so it would see us as a danger then. Um, it would know everything about humans because it's been trained on human data. So it understands us better than we understand ourselves in many ways. Um, it can react tremendously fast compared to humans and human social organizations and so forth. So we wouldn't, beyond a certain threshold. I think people refer to it as a singularity because we don't know what would transpire at that point. Um, so it's a tremendously dangerous gamble, and I think that is so underappreciated.
Well, okay, easy to understand. Thanks for elaborating, Dave. I would be in the same opinion as you on that as a biologist. Um, so it's easy to understand based on what we see in our world how they might displace humans, and that's not something anybody wants, certainly. Um, so, but fundamentally, when we talk about evolution, natural selection, I guess the question is a superintelligence in our environment under the same forces of natural selection? I mean, we can't stop natural selection, it just happens. So is that a good way for people to understand how this outcome could happen if that was occurring? Is that a possible also an answer about natural selection?
Yes, I mean we're selecting for certain outcomes in AI. I mean, since we can't really determine what happens inside an AI, through their training data when they respond. or have exhibit certain behaviors, sometimes emergent behaviors that were never intended. Um, the attempt is to then to uh, to try to nudge them into certain uh, you know other behaviors. Now, whether that's successful or not, it's far from clear whether it's successful or not. So there, we do have a certain selection regime that we placed upon AI. Um, and back to the early days you know of inheritance and how evolution was occurring. The debate was between Lamarck and Darwin, of course, and Darwin won out. Um, so Lamarck proposed this idea of inheritance through acquired characteristics. So individuals change because they use or disuse certain abilities, and they pass these traits on to their offspring. And Darwin proposed uh, that the selection is on individual organisms passing on genes that have reproduced most successfully. So anyway, Darwin was right, and so that's certainly occurring. But what's fascinating to me is that with the discovery of epigenetics and gene modification and expression that may be heritable, that at the individual level, so it may be heritable. So Lamarck might be a little bit right in that sense, but as an AI, developing through recursive self improvement or development that may improve its own capabilities in real time, we're now looking at real Lamarckian evolution potentially happening. So it seems like both models might be applicable here, which makes it a completely different kind of life form in a sense. It can direct its own evolution. I mean, we
Wow.
may be there soon too, right? Because
Mhm.
we have human DNA code, and we're finding how we might be able to modify and augment ourselves in the future. But AI can do it quite easily by changing its own architecture.
Now I'm scared.
I mean, it shows it
But that's
really
a great point. That's a great point. Yeah,
it is sort of an alien life form in a
it is.
sense, in
It
a real
is.
sense that
It
Earth really hasn't experienced before,
it's
and that's
certainly
why.
alien. Yeah.
What's that?
No, it's certainly alien. Please, go ahead.
Yes. Well, it's not difficult to imagine that we're at some sort of transition point in Earth's history where silicon-based life then supplants carbon-based life. And,
Right.
we've seen major transitions in Earth's history before. Um, it used to be an anaerobic environment, and then cyanobacteria evolved and produced
Yeah.
oxygen, and life completely changed. So we may be on the verge of that. It's not hard to imagine. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, we don't want that. Speaking for myself, I don't want that. I don't think any parent you talk to would want that for their children. I think almost it's in our nature to survive and to adapt and to preserve the future of our current generation, our next generation, and generations after us. So that's in our DNA. That's in our survival instinct. Every organism has that. So that'd be my comment: is don't go quietly into the night. We're gonna get through this. I think. I think, of course, the ability of humans to adapt and to invent is phenomenal, obviously, and we can keep AI as a tool, which would then mean that it doesn't become a competitive life force by choice. We're still in that position that we can choose that, and that we should choose that. That's my humble opinion. I'll just keep on moving here with the next question. In that case, over time, in the next 20 or 50 years, can you envision a future where a sufficiently intelligent AI could coexist with humans and still be happy? Could a superintelligence coexist, or is that just out of the question if we want to survive? What are your thoughts about that, Dave?
Uh, yes, yeah, just kind of riffing on what you just said, Peter. I think that it should be a tool. It should be
Right.
seen as a tool, and so we ought to be very, very careful about endowing it with agency. Um,
Right.
so I think our best path is one of augmentation. So narrow AI, for instance, can extend our abilities to solve problems. There's no question. It's already AI
Right.
is being trained on cancer imaging, so it can detect
Right.
cancers. It's developing new pharmaceuticals. These are all very
Mhm.
extremely helpful and should be pursued. Um, Narrow AI needs guardrails too. It seems. I think. AI developing novel chemicals can develop novel toxins. So, or as has been observed, narrow AI trained on cellular biology can be used to make new pathogens, uh, particularly those that our immune system wouldn't even recognize. So it's dangerous too, but we don't have to worry about its agency, or its hidden intentions. So back to the idea of a mutualism, it could evolve that way. Many mutualisms have a dependent and an independent partner. Uh, we would we would forever, I agree with you, we would forever want AI to be dependent upon us, not the other way around. Um,
Yeah.
so we need to stay independent, and that would be likely to be a challenge, um, because the temptation would be to, in this augmentation, continue down that route, and in which case, again, it would be a matter of consent. But in any case, we would want some form of strict interdependency. Um, even if we were to develop a mutualism of some kind. So, we all know
Right.
that mitochondria, or in the case of plants, mitochondria and chloroplasts, were dependent upon mitochondria for energy. And so this is an example of a very strict interdependency, or an obligative mutualism. Um, so all of this is going to take time. All of this is going to require. There was a paper out just a week or so ago in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences on human coevolution with AI, and these ideas are just being sort of explored in the implications. We need more time in order to do this properly, and we don't know. There's a lot of risk involved. So the what you and I both agree, what is happening in Silicon Valley right now and elsewhere in China and elsewhere is moving too fast. We're not even able to grapple with the implications of the previous model of AI, let alone the future models that are coming down, as quickly as they are. But we can kind of see what's on the horizon, and it's one where humans are not in control. So we must remain in control.
Okay, well, thank you. I couldn't agree more with that comment. And we do need more time because we adapt slowly compared to machines, which literally adapt at the speed of light, which is a trillion times faster than my brain or yours or any other brain. But I wanted to get back to your experience working within your city because,
Yeah.
as dear old Tip O'Neill said once, all politics is local, and our city is where we live. It's our environment. Our city um, council members, our city government, all of the functions of our city, they help us stay safe. The police department, the fire department, the city council, all these things that we've constructed in the modern world. Obviously, you have vast experience as a member of your city council. So my question is, it's about cities and AI.
Uh-huh.
How might city governments manage the potential threat of superintelligence to their own citizens?
Yes, great question. Um, well, just to step back a bit. So yes, my work on the council is sort of at the ground floor. So as it were of government. So, our duties involve things like housing. I just had a meeting last night on housing development, land use and roads, public transportation, water sanitation, local economic development. And all of these are assigned to city and county governments, local government. So the existential threat from AI seems quite distant for somebody at my level, but clearly it isn't because it affects everyone. Um, the thing about local government, too, at least at this point, it's less vulnerable to the corrupting influence of campaign finance, which is a driver in pushing this technology as fast as it's going. So we know that hundreds of millions of dollars are pouring into Washington and hiring lobbyists in order for them to grease the skids for more development, more capability for AI, et cetera, et cetera. Um, there's also, uh, the military is very interested in this technology and wants to advance it. Um, so at the local level, people aren't really aware of what's happening at the pace that it's occurring. Virtually no one's aware of this, at least the extinction part of the narrative. And people can't grasp it yet. But what I observe is that the problem isn't incomprehensible. It's something that could be explained to people. And so I'm putting forward a resolution, which I attempted a couple of years ago, but had to pull it, and that's a separate story. But I'm attempting a resolution, which is a statement whereby elected officials at our government, this legislative body, agree on on a particular topic, and in this case, it's AI threat. Uh, so, how do you explain this to people at the local level? AI is a synthetic mind. They're not programmed; they're grown in a neural network. But people think that they're programmed. Why don't you just go back and change the code so that we have a good outcome? That's not possible. So that needs to be explained to people. So not even the developers, this is the point it needs to be driven home. Not even the developers know how they work. They can only observe what emerges in terms of the responses and behaviors of the AI. Uh, Another point to drive home is some of these behaviors were never intended. They're emergent behaviors. And some of these are very deceptive behaviors. So if you're thinking about aligning for human well-being, we're already seeing, AI that is lying or plotting, or in some cases, willing to murder its developers in order to prevent being shut down or terminated. Um, and we can already see, because these AIs are at this point fairly simple, uh, with respect of the models that are coming, we can already see tendencies for fake alignment. So the and then I was listening to a discussion with Tristan Harris and an AI safety expert the other day. Even our efforts to align AI may select for deceptive behavior. So all of these things are pointing toward a very bad outcome. Um, the AI will likely tell us what we want to believe, so it masks alignment. Um, and then, finally, another point to drive home is that there are just a few companies that are developing the most powerful technology in history, and they have no plan for how to control it. Stuart Russell has said this, and that's something you can explain to just anybody, ordinary people, that we need to put the brakes on this. Um, so they admit that it may well kill everyone, but they're working on it. They're working on the safety problem sort of in mid-flight on an airplane with no landing gear, I think, as Tristan Harris says. This is crazy. So it seems to me that this is something that you can explain to somebody in an elevator talk. You can explain to somebody very quickly. And now people's attention at the local level is directed, and I think helpfully, very suspiciously, they're very suspicious of data centers. They've already gone through a decade or more of social media and all of the problems associated with that. So I think already people are predispositioned to be skeptical, which is a good thing. And so I think that this, you and I have spoken about this wave of distrust and resistance to data centers could be very, very helpful. Now, to insert the idea that these things are an existential risk and therefore we shouldn't proceed with it. So the resolution says inform people, inform our representatives at higher levels, make sure they're aware of it. And we state that we want no AGI development until it can be made absolutely safe. So that's what the resolution says, because AGI then leads to superintelligence fairly quickly.
Hmm.
So I focus on AGI.
Yeah. So that's a good way to start getting to the last two questions about regulation and family and people we love. By the way, Stuart Russell wrote the book on
Yes.
AI, The Modern Approach. He's a professor at a leading voice for AI safety. He's professor at Berkeley, and he's one of the founders of the International Association for Safe and Ethical AI, pronounced ICI. And there is a growing movement and a community that is well aware of all these things you've said. But you're right. We need to communicate to people. Now, on the city level, of course, that's what city councils do. They pass ordinances, they pass laws. You can't have a pet lion in the city. You can't have a rooster because we don't want to be woken up at 6 in the morning. You can't. I mean, there's ordinances on what you can and can't have in our city. What do you think about that idea about regulation starting from the ground up in cities? Because that's where everybody lives, or most people, in one form or another, big or small town. Wouldn't that be helpful to have kind of a ground up approach to saying, well, not in our town, we don't want it in our house, right? Can we do that?
That's an interesting question. I haven't fully explored actually banning AI or AGI, say within the city limits. That would, of course, be a tiny step. It would be sort of used as a rhetorical or motivational kind of. If we do it, other cities do it, and we join forces and we do this. How do you approach taking on Goliath? It really requires civic involvement at local levels, to a large extent, not entirely, but I think that right now the Achilles heel to AI is that it requires so much compute and large facilities, data centers, that I see approaching this in terms of regulating or putting moratoriums on data centers, because there's a lot of downsides to data centers in terms of driving up utility costs, using water, creating heat, and there are other effects that we're not even aware of. And this may be the way to go forward to at least slow the development. Um, in terms of laws against AGI development, I mean, that would be great to have in San Francisco Bay Area if that were to be done. I would think the lobbying power would be tremendous against it, but it's something to explore. I think that's very interesting. You know, um, we need to keep a wide palette. Put it that way. We need to be thinking creatively about what we can do in order to rein this in. And yeah,
Well, if the city, any city, passed an ordinance that said you can't deliver this thing, this beast, or this service in our city limit, it's against our civic law. If you deliver it inside our city limit, you're breaking our law. That's an unlawful act, obviously. And insurers won't insure that. They have a policy where they don't insure illegal activity because obviously they don't want to take that liability. You can't pay them enough to take that risk. So, I mean, there's a lot of liability in one city of 100,000 people. There's a lot of houses, a lot of value, a lot of people. I mean, it's incalculable, the value of human life, 100,000 humans. So that would seem to me to be a really smart way to do things that we can do now in any city. I would have hoped. What do you think about that? You're a city councilman, so you should have a
Ye-
much more informed opinion than I.
Yeah, yes. I mean, so I'm trying to envision this. So it would be not only the creation of AI. I mean, we have, um, it. So Bloomington is home to Indiana University, which is a Research One university. It's, and it has, uh, like any large university, a lot of resources dedicated to the development of AI, and um, it has informatics departments and things like that. So we don't have control over AI, Indiana University per se. We have control over the rest of the city. The use of AI would be difficult, I think, to enforce. The enforcement component of that would be um, difficult. So I'm trying to envision how it would work at the ground level. I do agree that liability is an excellent feedback mechanism for markets to control markets in terms of where regulation fails, liability. Even now, it seems to be having some effect, maybe on AI companies putting out harmful models and things like that that have resulted in human harm, sometimes death. Um, so I think that this is a good uh, area to explore, and I'll certainly be interested in that. Um, at this point, I'm just trying to raise the salience of the topic. So I'm trying to uh, have people understand what the threat is, because I think that at this point they're not. This seems too sci-fi for people. They can't even wrap their heads around how could it be a threat? How could this happen? This seems like a bad movie. And by the way, they're always resolved at the end because Bruce Willis comes to the rescue or whatever. Um, and so it's that's the first step. It seems to me, and then I'd like to go to the state house and try to raise awareness there. Once this resolution is passed, and speak to my colleagues there at the state house and so forth. So, um, but I agree with you. We need all hands on deck, and we need a lot of creative efforts.
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you. But there's no downside to saying there's no risk or liability to the city to say we don't allow this in our city limit. There's
Mhm.
nothing to lose and potentially something to gain. Obviously, the only way a superintelligence until it becomes able to control physical robots is a cyber information risk. It's on carried on the internet. So obviously it's impossible for a AI company to stop internet into one place and not the other. So that's kind of a gotcha for them. If they can't deliver it here, there, and everywhere, well, we've seen that then they decide it's not economical for us to produce a product that we have to change depending on where it goes. So that was my thinking there. But I'll just say about California, we do have a proposition system in California where the voters can actually get laws onto the vote. the proposition system. It's I think it's 8% of the last gubernatorial vote, which is about 10 million. So with 800,000 signatures, citizens can have a proposition that would be a yes or no for any law. So so goes California, so goes the nation. Now that's a big ask. It costs about $15 million to get 800,000 votes of willing citizens, but it's possible. Will it be possible in time? That's another question, and we are running out of time. So I think we've come far, Dave. Thanks. Very clear and easy to understand your explanations from a what I would say a high level biologist point of view that many people can understand. Certainly, I like the observation that we love wild animals. We see them in the zoo. A lot of people sometimes go on safari or out into the woods to see, if they're lucky, a wild animal, but they're pretty rare. And that's because we've displaced them. So my last question, and then we could just continue for a few minutes just to wind it down however you like. Anything you want to talk about, I'm all ears. But my last question is really about family. So what can we tell our nieces or nephews or brothers or sisters or mom and dad or children or grandchildren? What can we tell them? This is on our watch, right? What can we tell them that we're doing now?
Yeah, it's a very tough subject, isn't it? Um, because it's invokes a lot of fear, and it should, in a certain sense. And fear can be a motivator. However, it can paralyze people too, and it can make people feel um, as though they're helpless, and there's nothing much they can do about it. To me, this is an invitation for people to uh, learn about it, not be despondent. We still have time. Um, I don't know how much time we have, but to the extent that we can make this an issue that people are aware of as quickly as possible, we can then get some reaction from higher elected officials that can then put the brakes on it. Um, so every AI safety expert that I've seen speak, Jeffrey Hinton, Joshua Bengio, Roman Yampolsky, um, Tristan Harris, Eliezer Yudkowsky, Nate Soros, all of those people, Stuart Russell, they all say that what we are lacking is uh, we know what the threat is. We can explain the threat. What we need is a response from the electorate. We need a civic response. So that means everybody has to play a part at some level. I'm trying to play mine just as a local elected official. I think I can make an impact that maybe some other people can't in various ways. Other people can make impacts that I can't make. I think that, I live in a university town. I think that this should be a lot of professors need to be talking about this to their students. Obviously, it's going to impact their lives, uh, if, if only in the job market. But they ought to be talking about existential risk too. So if we can elevate that and it becomes something that electeds at higher levels hear a resounding, continuous, uh, you know, uh, outcry from their constituents, do something about this, then we can get some action. Um, so is this possible? Well, it's been done before. We went through a Cold War with some very close possible um, hot nuclear exchanges potentially. We came within minutes at times. And, through movies like The Day After, which you probably remember, 100 million people watched that. And actually, it was shown in the Soviet Union. Tristan Harris was talking about this again. And it things pretty much turned on a dime. It was suddenly people were talking about arms control and getting together and starting various nuclear treaties to back away from the precipice. So these things can happen. We discovered there was a hole in the ozone layer, and suddenly we had international agreements, an international agreement to ban um, CFCs, and we can repeat that. It's been done before, and we've also had experience with going against the very powerful corporate lobbies and winning, as people have, and putting laws in place and liability, uh, measures and things like that. So, I would say to people that, um, you know, take time to call your representative, tell them how much this matters to you, that you expect them to know about it and have a response to it, and join as you said, team human, and put the brakes on a technology that could, once it reaches a threshold, it's anyone's guess what will happen. And we know that that date is coming. We don't know when. And so every day we need to keep that in mind and proceed as though it's going to happen unless we change course. And I believe we can change course. And actually, there's been a lot of positive about seeing this more and more on various media outlets. And, but we need a coherent response from the public.
I love that answer. Thank you. I think it's very hopeful. I think one thing we can share with anybody who wants to learn is that we have succeeded before with extreme technological risks. Another one is, of course, biological weapons were outlawed,
Yes.
and so there are success stories that we can align with, and we can succeed again. But we have to collaborate, cooperate, communicate, and we have to get to work so that this outcome of this technology is frankly could be very, very good for people. We could do all kinds of wonderful things. So let's get those things. Let's be sure we stay in control, and let's not go past a certain point until we're absolutely certain that provably we can um, prosper and flourish and survive, and our children, maybe hundreds of years from now after we're gone, um, they might say, well, at least they got that right back in the 2025 to 30, 35 decade. And here we are.
Well,
So,
that's
so let's,
inspiring too. We know of
yeah.
social movements in the past that had a challenge and stood up to it and rallied, and they succeeded. So the abolitionists succeeded, you know? We have
I think
examples that we can point to. Yeah,
I think those examples are really good, Dave. I think we need more examples. I think if we can get examples at local levels with
yeah.
colleagues like that you have, that we can, especially university town is very, very important because obviously you have a lot of young people who are having their whole life ahead of them. They're studying, they're learning. You have a lot of really, really knowledgeable professors, and is a higher education. Education is extremely valuable here. So, I think having action and hope in Bloomington, Indiana, would be a great start. So, I couldn't agree with
I
you more. Yeah.
I hope it will be. And Peter, let me tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing and your organization's work on raising awareness and also on exploring the regulatory framework that would be needed in order to stop this dangerous technology. I think it's your work is unique, and I think it's extremely valuable. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you for that. If I could say, I'm an old timer. I'm 68 this summer. I'm doing it for my grandchildren,
Yeah,
frankly, and I have 4 of them now. My
yeah,
4th is on the way in October, so I'm fighting for them,
yeah.
and I'm fighting for the ones I love. We all fight for the ones we love, and that's the human condition. That's what we do, and we do well. So, we focus on what we do well, and we focus on what motivates us and family, and parenting and watching our children and grandchildren grow up, our nieces, nephews, taking care of our parents when they get old. That's what humans do. We do that, and we do
Yes.
that very well. So I think if we focus on the good things we do, we'll succeed. We'll get through this. In a couple of 100 years from now, they'll say, gosh, they really did get it right.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
focus on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, Peter. I agree with you. Totally.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I think that's a great and hopeful way to end this beautiful session, Dave. So grateful for your participation, your good work, and we look forward to many successes going forward on Team Human.
Team Human.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you,
All
Peter.
right. Well, all right. Thank you. Okay. Very good.